I believe marketing must be a business growth driver. Got to link it back to performance in the short term where you can, and that's important for sure. Yet also, investing in building what you stand for the long term, because ultimately, a brand is something that lets you have pricing power over the long term, and that's the language the CFO wants to hear. And finding a way to show that the more clearly we can, the more we get the investment in marketing.
Welcome to Building Better CMOs, a podcast about how marketers can get stronger and smarter. I am Greg Stuart, the CEO of the nonprofit industry body MMA Global. And that voice you heard at the top is Zena Arnold, the CMO of Sephora. Before her current role, she worked at GE, P&G, Kellogg's, Google, Kimberly-Clark, and Pepsi. Wow. And she is also joining the board of the MMA. Today on Building Better CMOs, Zena and I are going to talk about the unique challenges and opportunities of leading marketing for a traditional retailer with a robust online business. Now, Zena studied computer science in college and only later discovered that she had a knack for marketing and leadership. She had one foot in the past and the other in the future, and the secret to her success has been adapting to learning at every place she's worked. This podcast is all about the challenges marketers face and unlocking the true power that marketing can have. Zena Arnold from Sephora is going to tell us how she did it right after this. Zena, how you doing?
I'm great.
Okay, so I need to sort of first off acknowledge that you're one of the many people who have left New York City for allegedly a better place in the last few months.
That's right. I moved to the best coast. Yep.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. Every time somebody leaves, I feel like a small piece of me sort of dies, like angels lose their wings or something. I don't know.
No.
But you were a New Yorker, though. I mean, like, you've spent a lot of time here.
Briefly, actually,
okay.
But I loved it. I loved New York. It's such a special place. There's nowhere in the world like it. I do miss it, but quite happy to be back in the West Coast, back in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, no, I lived in the Bay Area. It really is nice. I mean, there's pockets of it that have gotten a little wonky recently, but otherwise, it's pretty darn nice. Yeah. And in fact, I used to call my friends when I lived out there, and I called back in New York. I says, I never knew how nice weather could be. You do get you're going, wow, I really dealt with all the pain of either hot, sweltering summers or cold winters.
Yeah. And I lived in Chicago too. So I really had all extremes and very happy to be in more moderate temps now.
I lived in Chicago for a year. I went there to launch cars.com, and it was truly one of the most weather painful places I'd ever been. In fact, what I love about Chicagoans too, they all say the same thing. It's very funny. I go, it's so damn cold there. And they go, yeah, but the summers. I go, no, the summers are kind of miserable too. And they go, yeah, it's pretty bad too. It's very they all say the same thing.
Because it's true. And the winters are so bad that even though the summers aren't actually that great, you are so grateful for them because the winters are so terrible.
That's what it is. Exactly. It's just the contrast, but they're really awful also. No, I had done when I was much younger, I did high alpine mountain climbing, right? So I had all the gear for that, and I would wear it there, and it wasn't enough. It was really bad. I was like, oh my God. But that said, I did like Chicago. I do think it's the best city in America. Like, for a city, like, you got the river, you got great architecture, there's nice parks, like, it's well laid out. You can always predict where you're going to go. The traffic is never really bad. Like, it's a wonderful city to be a part of. My joke was always, why the hell did they have to put it there? Didn't they just put it someplace else? Oh, well, okay. I guess I'm missing the point. Hey, the other thing interesting before we get into our sort of main conversation is that you're one of the rare marketing people with a computer science degree.
I am.
Okay, so why did you do that, and why did you abandon computer science to go into marketing?
Well, it wasn't really by choice.
Well, there's a story. Okay, go ahead.
It is. Well, I've always loved technology. I mean, since I was a kid, I still remember I was maybe third, fourth grade when my dad brought home our first family PC, and I was just fascinated with it and loved experimenting and playing and learned basic coding very early and just thought it was a lot of fun. I didn't quite understand all of what would be coming, obviously, but knew that something here is just really cool and this is changing a lot, and decided I want to major in that. So when I went to school, I studied computer science, really enjoyed it, had several internships at really great
Oh, really? Wow.
companies.com bubble companies. So I was all set to go work for one, get horribly overpaid for a 22-year-old coming out. But this was the .com bubble bursting. So just
Ooh.
yeah,
Oh.
a couple of months before I was supposed to go and start work, the company called and they said, we're going out of business, so you don't have a job anymore.
Oh my God. Who was that? Can you say who it was?
Yeah, it was this company called Scient. They
Oh,
were,
I know Scient.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. They were part of kind of the Fast Five, not the Big Five consulting, and we did a lot of digital projects for companies. And again, internship there, phenomenal, great company, and I was very excited about going to work there full time. And then the bubble burst. So I graduated from college. I moved back in with my parents and said, I got to find a job. And I was looking and looking, and obviously it wasn't a great time for the job market, but I was pretty fortunate to find a role in product marketing, product management at GE IT
Great.
Solutions.
Great.
This was a company that was selling servers, workstations to kind of mid-sized businesses. And for me, it was an opportunity to use everything I knew about technology. And I said, okay, I don't really quite know what this marketing stuff is going to be like, but I'll figure it out. Let's give it a shot. I ended up really liking it
Ah,
because GE has a similar view to a lot of companies of product marketing and product management, and tech is not just about the technology or just about the product. It's about managing a business. And I really enjoyed that perspective and learning about the breadth of business and how you could do different things to affect it. And so that kind of started me on my path. I loved
wow.
marketing, and I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where I was living when I was working at GE. And so right in my backyard was Procter and Gamble.
Of course. The
Knew
best of the best.
people who worked there, and they said, hey, if you want to do marketing, that is the place to do it.
Did they value your tech background at that time? So this is like early 2000, right? Were they valuing? Did they say,
Yeah,
"Oh my gosh,
yeah.
she's got a tech background. She'd be good. We'd like to have that," or did they just go, bad degree. What about marketing?"
No. I won't say it was a value of tech as in computer science per se, but P&G has always valued, and in fact, you'll find a large percentage of their marketing leaders have engineering,
Oh,
technical
okay,
backgrounds, and
okay,
I
okay.
think because you learn how to think, you become very familiar with logical ways of framing your thinking, and that's very helpful in business, not just engineering and tech. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was tech like computer science, but they loved the kind of technical thinking that comes with
Yeah,
those
okay.
degrees.
Oh, okay. They value. Okay, listen, and you did great. You were at Folgers. I think you did Folgers, and you did Olay. Is that right?
That's right.
I worked on paper, Bounty for years. My favorite brand I ever worked on. I worked on bar soaps too, and I think I worked in a personal care. I kind of remember what the division was called, but yeah, I probably worked with 13 or so odd brands in my career at P&G. I love P&G. Love. Smart people trying to figure out good stuff.
Yeah, a fantastic training
Fantastic.
ground.
Fantastic.
I think you just learn from the best. And
Totally.
because it's a culture of promote from within and training, you learn so much that in other places, you learn as well, but it's more kind of on the job. I loved a lot of the structure that they put
Yeah.
around teaching.
Yeah.
Is it's fundamentals that I carry with me to this day.
Totally. Same for me too. I learned some of the most from them, and I just found it fascinating to the degree which a brand manager really had to know every side of the business. I think it was the first time I really felt like I remember Bounty. We were talking about pallet size. Like I just loved it. Love. The silliest thing in the world. But I love that conversation. I don't know why I remember that 30 plus years later. Oh well. Hey, so listen now. You've only been at Sephora for 6 months. So I've got to ask somebody like you who's got a technical, at least appreciation. You've not done coding in a while, I assume. Okay.
It's great. It's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
a long
yeah. But
time.
but you probably even understand how AI really works. Given your background and your extensive background in marketing, how are you looking at AI? I mean, it's sort of the talk of the town. It's everything that's going on. First off, we agree it's the most important thing of this decade, correct?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree for sure.
So how are you looking at AI as a marketer, as a CMO?
In a few different ways. I'm absolutely thrilled for what I think AI can bring to us as marketers in a few different areas. And, part of it is my computer science background and knowing and understanding and being very excited by what's possible and the developments that have happened. And then part of it is, as a marketer, looking to see how I think so many different things will be enabled in this world once we figure out how to best use it. As I've been talking about it with my team and folks here, and even broadly in the industry, I think there's two big areas or pieces of AI and how we can use it. There's how do we use it in processes? So a bit of the behind the scenes, if you will. I think it's already been happening in media buying and a number of things that are happening right now in digital media. I think it can also be huge in processes that we go through for creating work, even little things like tagging work, creating or keeping repositories of all of our content. So there's so many things that can just be done so much simpler, so much faster, require a lot less manual work that I think everyone is all in on. If you tell someone we can make some of these things that are a pain point easier, everyone's thrilled with it. One place that we have been using it that is kind of customer facing, if you will, is on our website with product recommendations. We can use a number of different cues about, what you have bought in the past or what you've looked at to suggest other products that you might like. And it's great. I mean, as a customer of Sephora, I love it because it surfaces a lot of interesting new things for me to try that I like hearing and seeing about that I might not discover on my own. And just from a business standpoint, it's great as well because it's opening up new opportunities for us to bring different brands, different products to our customers.
Do you have a favorite application? Is there a business that you've seen that's offered a solution, whether you're using it or not? Or have you seen an application maybe in Sephora or even maybe as far back as Pepsi, I don't know, but that you've seen and you think, wow, that is really cool?
I think that some of the applications I've seen of chatbots have been outstanding.
Totally.
I think it was it maybe United Airlines that I was having travel snafus a few months ago, and the line was busy, and it was you're gonna have to wait 30 minutes to talk to someone, or you could try our chatbot. And I thought, oh, this is not going to work.
Nobody likes a chatbot.
Well, but I'll tell you though, Greg, I was impressed.
Really?
I kind of here's my issue, here's what happened, here's what I need help with, and it was simple. It was clear. It made the changes that I needed to do, and I was on my way. So,
did you not need to disclose that as an AI or otherwise driven chatbot? I mean, did they tell you it was fake? It wasn't a person?
That's a good question. I don't remember. I could tell that it was, sort of how the responses came, but they were effective. It helped. So, yeah, I think that those are only going to get better, and we'll continue to see the experience improve.
Oh, the exponential gain in what's happening around all that now is just literally insane. And what, they're releasing. And I think you're right. I'm actually starting to hear a thesis of like my bot's going to talk to your bot. Zena, we might not even have to do a podcast anymore live like this. Someday you'll say, yes, my bot's busy at 3:30, but can do 4. Is yours available?
No, my bot will be able to talk to anyone at any time. Like I'll have a million of them.
Yeah, I can replicate my ADHD and have 5 conversations at once on different topics. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's what we're suggesting is going to go on here. I'm going to have to think that through a little bit if I'm going to be okay with that or not. Oh well. Okay.
No, I'm not okay with that.
You're not okay with it. Right? Let me be really clear. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, let's be clear. I want a bot to like read and respond to my boring emails, but talking to you, this is the fun stuff.
let's get to the real topic here. Okay. So, I ask everybody the same question. And, if you take the thesis of the MMA, which is to really try to fix marketing, that's really what I have to do. So I use this podcast in order to sort of find out where we think the challenges are. Where do we think the problems are? It's not just about glorifying sort of the role that we do. It's like, well, where could we be better? Because that's the right long-term play, and that's what they may focus on. Okay. So the question is, what do you generally think that marketers or marketing doesn't really get right?
Yeah, I'd say that many, if not most, marketers don't get that brand and performance are not separate. I think it's really important to understand that they each have to drive each other. They're each linked very closely. To be clear, it is not easy at all to bring those together in a effective kind of way. But when I've done that and when I've seen that out in the world, that's where you really get a lot of magic. Brand being this powerful statement of who you are, what you stand for, your brand's purpose for existing in the world, and performance being all about driving sales, driving conversions, whatever the ultimate business goal is. But I've seen the best marketing is when those two things are influencing each other very, very heavily, and elements of both show up in the channels that you might say are just one or just the other. And when you can figure that balance out, figure out that kind of yin and yang of influencing each other, that's when the magic happens.
I think this is the number one question I hear from CMOs. And I have, as you are probably aware, we've been doing this research around understanding brands' relationship to performance and optimization. So we can talk more about that. But since we decided to go down that project of trying to do some research, which we can get into, I probably talked to 300 CMOs, and there's not one of them who doesn't say that in the discussion within their company. It's crazy that we don't have, I think, the answer to it. Okay, so let me ask you a couple of questions about it. Are you talking about brand optimized with performance? So you have to use performance in some cases and brand. It's that combination of two different marketing channels. Or is it treating brand as a performance channel and then taking, I guess, responsibility for growth, not just in performance, but in brand too, as it might be to either the board or the CFO or wherever that might go within the company that you're at?
I would state it as it's about ensuring that you have the right balance of things in the right channels.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's completely one thing or the other in any channel. So you might
Yep.
say like, okay, if I'm making a beautiful 30-second TV spot, that still happens, believe it or not.
Yep.
And if that's your goal and you say this is just about an expression of our brand, if it is this beautiful emotional thing that doesn't show how that brand solves a problem for that brand's, customer or consumer, or if it doesn't tell you ultimately who the brand is in a memorable way, if it doesn't tell you where to get that brand or use that brand, then you might have created a beautiful piece of art, but it's not going to have any effects. And so those elements need to be brought in. Now, on the other hand, you also don't want to get to using a certain channel, especially something like a TV ad, to say, oh, okay, the only thing this is about is performance. So, I'm looking to get a click out of it. It's just knowing, okay, you probably can lean heavier into that brand side, but you need to have some of those elements of performance to make it effective in that channel. And in something like search, again, here I'd argue you don't have a ton of space. You don't have a lot of ability to tell a story. But when you can figure out how to do that and bring that in with various cues or a tone of voice, then you have the most effective performance ad because you can bring some of that bit of your brand and what you stand for into that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I said it before, it's not easy to do that, and it takes time to develop, and it develops over time, as in most of the brands I've worked on, you iterate your way there to figure out both the big brand positioning things and the most effective performance. And you've just got to be open to doing that and playing with all the little levers until you kind of hit something that works.
No, it's interesting too. And by the way, I've done the research. I had done the research about probably 18, 19 years ago, maybe or so. But I did the research with Google in trying to understand if there was brand value out of search. And there was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right. It's not sort of either or. And we're certainly not running TV as just for brand. It had better produce sales.
Yes.
Okay. So, but see, I think the issue that we have there, so listen, MMA looked at this issue. We have a research initiative we've been working on for 4.5 years. It's called Brand as Performance. And so the thesis is brand has to be performance, but it's over time.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge you've had as a marketer is that there was no methodology to measure that. I know that. I have asked 300 CMOs, and nobody has told me about an off-the-shelf methodology for that. We built a methodology. And I raised $2.5 million in order to do a series of research studies, and we are now out in field. We've done this is public information. We finished our first study with Ally Financial, and that's been talked about at the Possible event that we do in April, and then also at MMA CEO CMO Summit. We also Kroger's has been executing a study. I literally yesterday saw the results of that study. I mean, yesterday we showed it to. I saw the first results 48 hours ago, but we showed it to the board yesterday. And Kroger hadn't even seen it. We've shown it to the board, so that nice that my chairperson let me, KV Zoom, let me get away with that. But thank you, Kay. And it's interesting. And so what we've discovered, I'll tell you what the data is now.
Yeah.
What we knew from the Ally study is that if you gained $1 today in sales from a brand campaign, that campaign would deliver another $1.50 over time. So 2.5x. What it appears in the Kroger study, and listen, I'd like this to settle a little bit. I'd like the research team to kind of finish their analysis before we be hugely public about it at the moment. But we found that $1 gain today likely generates between $5 to $6 down the road. And these studies are $750,000 studies. It's very serious research. It's never been tried before. And in fact, when I first told Google, funny enough, that we were going to, because you spent some time there, when I told Google we were going to do this, they said, "We love this idea. We don't think you can do this. We don't think it's possible." And we're like, okay, well, that's the smartest guys in the room just told us not possible. I guess that doesn't, we'll go anyway, I guess is what we did. What do you think? Would you have we've never had that kind of measurement, right? We don't really know what $1 invested today is worth in brand in the future, do we? I think what you're saying to me, which is funny for the computer science person to say, but from your gut, right? You knew it. Isn't that what you're in essence saying?
Yes. I think we also showed in the longer term certain brand metrics. There's a number of different ways you can measure it, but these kind of brand love metrics.
Yeah, brand love, brand trackers, right?
Exactly, have shown there's certain things that if you track and improve over time, they have a strong correlation with your business over time. But it's never been as tight as kind of the ROAS that you're getting
Yes.
from a spend in performance marketing. So really excited to see that work. I think that could be really breakthrough.
Yeah. No, we think it's one of the biggest questions that marketers haven't answered that, we really have an obligation to answer for the CFO and others.
That's right. We do. And I've mentioned it before. I believe marketing must be a business growth driver.
Yes.
Got to link it back to performance in the short term where you can. And this is also what's so exciting for me about being in retail because, now this is getting that data at the moment of conversion and it's a lot more than you get as a brand. So that's important for sure. Yet also, investing in building what you stand for the long term, because ultimately, a brand is something that lets you have pricing power over the long term. And that's, the language the CFO wants to hear, and finding a way to show that the more clearly we can, the more we get the investment in marketing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's got to be really interesting. We should talk about that a little bit because I mean, listen, you had Google Chrome. I saw was a product, Kellogg's. You got a lot of CPG in there, and then some tech. Okay, but retail is a whole nother beast, right? And you don't have to use that word. You get daily sales. I mean, I've talked to enough of my retail CMOs on the board. Like, you get daily reports on what the hell's going on. Like, you really know.
I get emails every hour during our big
God.
sales. This is
Oh my God.
I mean, there's you can watch things roll in by the second if you wanted to on dashboards. It's so much fun.
Is marketing set up to be able to sort of respond to that yet today, do you think?
No, not
Okay,
in the, by the second, by the hour. And honestly, I don't know if there's a lot that would come of making those types of changes,
Yeah.
We're getting more and more closer to real time, but definitely not in it. And I don't know that we really need to either. But the fun of it is seeing the impact immediately in so many of the things you do. One of our key roles of marketing and retail is driving traffic, whether that's into a store or whether it's to our site or our app. And it's pretty awesome when you turn things on to see that having a direct effect, almost immediately.
That's really like running two different business lines, though, in some regard, isn't it? I mean, customers are different, expectations are different, the marketing is going to be different against those, I assume, or somewhat, or no?
It's not shockingly different. And what we're seeing actually is this omni-channel customer that shopping online, sure, but also coming into the store. Some of the exciting things we've done in recent years, we have a store mode of the app, so people can actually come in and there's certain cues and things you can see when you have the app open when you're in the store. I think there's a ton more we could do with that.
Wait, what does store mode? What does store mode mean? You mean like you're getting like an AR? You're not getting an AR experience, are you? No. Okay.
But being in the store, you can actually turn that on your app to help you find certain products that you're looking for.
Wow. So helpful to everybody.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting, exciting things that we can do to enhance that omni-channel experience. And, one of the things that's been growing for us a lot is buying online, picking up in store. So people, are thinking about it. They want something maybe right away. They know the store's on the way home, but let me just order it, have it waiting for me. I can run in quickly, grab it and go. So that kind of blurring of the channels has been really good for our customer client experience.
What is the biggest difference, though, you think, between doing CPG and going to retail? Like, what advice would you have for, another senior marketer making that kind of transition that's been interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think and see the pace and the quantity of the market work in retail is just off the charts. In traditional brands, you've got a couple of key products that you are launching every year, a few big campaigns a year. And here, we've got something happening every few weeks because you've got to keep the excitement. You've got to drive that traffic into the store. So I think that's the biggest difference. I think the other big difference is always balancing a bit of your equity as a retailer and the equities of your brands that you carry and that you sell. And it's an interesting environment for me because previously, in packaged goods, we didn't have any exclusive retailers, right? Like we were in all of the channels.
Everywhere.
Retailers were everywhere. And here at Sephora, there are a number of key brands that are exclusive to us. And so obviously want to talk about those. They're amazing brands. And so how do you balance, telling that story plus our story? What are we bringing as sort of the curator of all of these brands? But then obviously the brands themselves are what people are there to buy. So that's another interesting and fun thing to balance.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back after this with Zena Arnold. This is Building Better CMOs. Let's get back to my conversation with Zena Arnold, the CMO of Sephora. Hey, Zena, I have another question for you too, just kind of along this idea of producing growth. Do you feel like you have a real advantage with a comp sci? I mean, listen, it was a number of years ago, so I can appreciate, like nobody remembers the language they learned in college, I assume. But do you find some advantage in having a computer science degree today? And how does that kind of pop up for you?
I do, but I wouldn't say it's in the sense you would think of, oh, I can understand more about how, AI works or can be better at digital media buying details. It's
Mm-hmm.
more that mindset like we were talking about earlier. It's like, you learn as a computer scientist and an engineer. It's like very logical, structured thinking,
Yeah.
how to attack problems, how
Yep.
to solve them in very clear ways. So that absolutely, I feel like I use every single day with
Yeah.
everything that I work on. But the technical aspects of it, not really, because things have changed so much from
Yeah.
when
What language did you learn in school? What were you good at?
C++. plus plus.
Oh, huh. How old is that now, right? Actually, C++ still used, isn't it?
A little bit, but
A
not
little bit? Okay. How many times have you been in a senior marketing, like this senior marketing role?
the past few roles in companies I've been in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Pepsi was a senior marketing role. Kimberly Clark was the chief digital and marketing officer, right?
yeah, yeah.
Google, you were the global head of growth for Chrome, right? Okay. Unless I get to be a senior guy in a very small company, okay. But it has its own. But I work with very big companies like you all. I find that people underrate the difficulty that it means to get to a top job, and then also staying there and being effective. So I always like to talk to people about sort of, what was their path to get there, or what does it mean to be effective in a senior executive role? Like in part, something like, what was your personal experience is really what I'd love to hear. And then, ultimately kind of what was your advice to the youngins in the business who are maybe looking up, and I don't know, I do hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I look at my boss's job. I don't think I want that job." But so you obviously thought differently. So I don't know. Talk a little bit about what it means to sort of operate the level of some of these major, giant, even sometimes global corporations.
Yeah, I have been pretty intentional about the different experiences that I've sought out and different things that I've learned along each step of the way. As we were talking earlier, P&G was a fantastic place to work, kind of understand a lot of the fundamentals, not just of marketing, but of business overall. And then there's places like the tech industry. I worked at Google, just such an amazing place to embrace agility and experiment by doing. There's this joke about companies like Google aren't strategic because strategy means making a choice, and they don't make choices. They just try everything and then see what works.
I've not heard that. Is that right? They're just a test and learn environment.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
little bit like throw it up against the wall and see what happens. I love it. Okay, that's funny.
I'm maybe simplifying it a bit too much,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
understand.
it's the ability to do that. In packaged goods where the industry isn't growing as fast and the pace isn't so important. It's like you have to be very careful and like, okay, let's do a
Yeah.
lot of research and analysis and put all of our money behind this one big bet and really hope that it works out. And in tech, you can't do that because everything is changing all the time, and so
Mm-hmm.
you make some choices, but you do explore a lot more, which is fantastic
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you get to try so many different things. I mean, I'd say going to Google and tech industry broadly was definitely a tipping point in my career because I was able to accelerate my career growth because I was in a business that was rapidly growing, and so the expectation is you're going to figure stuff out as you go. There's not as much bureaucracy. It's like you have to move. You've got to figure it out. You have to make it happen. And I think that's just a fantastic experience to be in that kind of a growth environment because you learn a ton by doing. You make a ton of mistakes, but that's okay. That's what's expected. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when you go to a more mature environment, something that's not growing as quickly, it's more focused on efficiency. You also learn a lot about
Yeah. Yep.
being choiceful about things and doing the right level of analysis. So both of those things really important to balance out, I think, in a career. And if there's one thing I think that has helped me is that ability to be adaptable to the environment
Mm,
you're in, and getting everything you can, learning everything you can from where you are.
got it. What's it mean to be adaptable? What is that? I don't know. Is that a roll with the punches kind of thing? Is that a figure out next new?
I think it's being able to assess a situation and figure out what needs to be done, and kind of selecting from your toolkit of skills of what is best applied to do that. Again, at a place like P&G, deep analysis is very valued because you have to be very choiceful about the
Yeah.
things that you do. In a place like Google, it's actually more about that experimental mindset and, okay, how can I reduce risk to try a lot of things as fast as possible, which is a very, very different mindset than that of that kind of deep analysis. So I think it's being adaptable is like having a lot of different skills and knowing when to apply them.
How amazing to be able to operate. It's sort of the best of large marketing driven companies, Procter and Gamble, bunch of smart people, totally thoughtful, ambitious for sure. And then, you operated, then you've also, been successful within a Google. You were at Google 7, 8 years, whatever it was, right? You went back in the CPG. Now you're over in retail, which is really, I don't know that people, of all the listeners, understand how different retail really is from consumer packaged goods. These are apples, oranges. No, these are fruits and bricks. I don't know. They're just almost not in the same. They're things, but they're not really the same. So that's pretty impressive that you've done that. So is it just because you're a really smart person, you figure stuff out, or is it a style that you do, or I don't know.
I am a learner. I love learning and kind of figuring things out, problem solving. That goes back to that CS degree. But for me, it's so much fun to be in different environments and learn from different people, different situations. I've just always loved that process. You've probably heard about the growth mindset, and I try to have that in everything I go into. It's like, I don't know how to do this yet. I'm going to figure it out though. And having that energy to be able to do that, I think is what has helped kind of make the transitions and have them be successful and fun.
That's kind of, I'm kind of wondering what your parents sort of taught you at some level. That's where it feels like maybe that comes from. I don't know. Because, I think people could approach it sort of super stressful. They could take the pressure of it. Listen, we start to spend the money that we make. It doesn't matter how much you make, you still will spend what you make. And so it's not really that you benefit hugely, I think, at some level from that, per se. And money doesn't bring happiness, over time. It's better, but is it staying calm, or is it really just looking for the fun? What's the perspective you were given for that?
Oh, I'd be lying if I said there isn't stress in everything that I've done.
Okay,
There
fair
absolutely
enough.
is. And I find that fun for the most part.
Oh,
It's
okay. You like the
exciting.
stress.
And yeah, again, to me, that sort of signals, okay, I haven't figured out how to do something yet, and I have to. So, that's some fire under me to say, okay, let me figure it out. So, yes, I do enjoy that. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I do what I do. But clearly, there's always moments where, you need to step back and take a minute and remember kind of what you're doing it all for. I have a son who just turned 5. It's been the best experience ever. And, my husband and we've always both loved kids, but also we thought, hey, if we don't have any, we love our lives. We love to travel. We love to do a lot of different things. And so, no big deal. And we were both a little older when we had our son, and it's just been a magical experience. Like, it's a very hard one, to be clear. Some of the stress comes from that too in my life, but it's super rewarding as well, and it really puts a lot of things in perspective. To know
Yes.
that there's other people depending on you who they don't know me for anything. My son doesn't know me for anything career related. I'm just mommy,
Yeah.
and being able to be there for someone, it's really special.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. You know, what's interesting is I talked to my son. We took him to college this year. So my kids are older at this point, right? Took him to college, and I said, well, I said, as we were driving this, are you nervous about this? He goes, no, not really. I go, well, aren't you nervous about the work? He goes, I've been kind of successful in school before. And I go, okay, well, college is different. He goes, yeah, no, I know. But he goes, I think I know what to do. And I said, well, what about making friends? He goes, people generally like me. And so I'm not really worried about that. I was like, oh my God, if we could only all have that kind of attitude, right? I mean, that's what you just said, right? You just said like, you know what? It's gonna kind of be okay. And I love your sense of like for a greater purpose. I do think, listen, I don't think everybody needs to have children by any means. That's having had 3. I'm not sure that you have to do that by any means. Okay. However, it does provide a sense of meaning and purpose in your life a little bit, which is what you just said, I think, right?
Completely. And I am sure that other things in my life would have had meaning as well. But this one, it's just been a lot more special than I thought it would be.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
yeah.
interesting.
It really is. It's been great. And I think that is because we waited until we were
Yeah.
older, and
Yep.
I think we got a lot of the things that we wanted to do done. And so, it's kind of this great phase to enter into, like feeling, I don't know if you can ever feel ready, but feeling a
Yeah.
little more ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus friends of mine I know who had kids really young that were like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know what I want out of my own life, and so it's just different benefits and different things that you're sacrificing, but it's been something that I'm really happy to say has been completely worth all the sacrifices.
Yeah, yeah. I love. That's so nice to hear. Listen, I heard Francis Ford Coppola speak on some Bravo show, so you can just imagine which one it was. But I still remember this day. It's probably, it could have been 25, 30 years ago. He says, I hear a lot of you young actors, actresses, talk about how you don't want to have a family because you're busy working your career. He says, I want to be really clear to you. I didn't even begin to succeed until I had a family.
Mm.
And I thought that was very interesting. I think there's a balance, and again, I'm not going to be the child that must have children advocate by any means. However, I do think there's a balance that comes to that can really help when you have a higher purpose than just whether or not we made the store sales that day, right?
Completely.
And to be helpful too. I mean, you'll find too, like I said, my children are older, and listen, children get older, they have a little bit of trouble sometimes. And so, the opportunity to help them is really very, very rewarding. So, well, listen, this has been super interesting. I want to do a couple of lightning round questions with you, though. Okay, ready? Who else in marketing, person or company, can't be anybody that you're working with currently, it can't be the current company, you got to take them out of the mix. Okay. Who else in marketing, person or company, do you most admire today? Whose work do you most admire today?
I love the marketing that Liquid Death is doing.
Oh, that's so
Them, the
interesting. Yeah, talk more.
water
I
brand.
heard about some what they do. Talk more. I don't know much about the story. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, they are a brand of water, which I mean, I think that is the ultimate marketing challenge: is how do you convince someone to buy something they could get for free?
Exactly.
Water.
We know we no longer pay for long distance, but we pay for water. I don't know. The world's upside down as far as I can tell. Go ahead.
So this is a very crowded space, and you might argue what more is there to say or do. But I love their positioning. It's like maybe murder your thirst or something like that. It's a super unique tone. and they live it in everything they do. Like whether that's their ad creative, their look and feel of their packaging. It looks like a beer can. It's, very intense with a skull on it. But maybe most importantly, I love the brand acts, as I call it, the kind of.
What's a brand act? What's
Yeah,
that?
it's like things that they do in the world that show what
Okay.
they stand for. It drives
Oh, okay.
buzz, it drives engagement. I remember reading, it was maybe last year, the year before, they created the first ever sponsorship for a water boy on a football team. And it's like, that's
Of
just
course
so
they should do
cool.
that. That's
Of course
brilliant.
they
They
should.
should, of course they should do that.
And so, something that did not cost a lot of money, yet so on brand for them. Everybody like gets a smile and a chuckle out of it. It's just that's really smart
Oh
marketing.
my God. You know what? I bet you every marketer, if we asked them, would love to have an anti-brand almost. It's like, we want to be just go have fun and make stuff up and not worry about being proper, not have to protect a multi-billion-dollar revenue stream. I mean, I got into it with one of my brands, one of the big ones, and they said, Greg, we just can't do that. Here's what they said. I'll never forget. They said, I don't want to be a person who took anything off a $50 billion corporation's valuation.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's a whole new level. You're right. That's complicated. I wouldn't want to be that person either. But, we live in corporate America. There's a lot of sensitivities and there's more danger around some of this stuff than not danger. There's more, it's harder not to cross the line than ever today, correct? And get it wrong.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt there is a lot of pressure for big companies especially, but
Yeah.
what I love about something like what Liquid Death has done is this isn't controversial stuff that they're doing. It's
Right.
super clever stuff.
It's just clever. Okay.
Or like, who would have thought of that? But it's so smart to do what they want to stand for in the minds of their
Right.
consumers and do it in a clever, fun way. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, and they've done it super well.
How hard is it as a head of marketing of a number of different companies? How hard is it for you to give freedom and reign for people to be able to bring those kind of ideas? You're trying to crank out the work. You got work to do. You got campaigns to launch. I mean, Heather Freeland from Adobe told me she has campaigns with 5,000 assets in it. Oh my God, that's a factory. That's a marketing. That's a factory. Okay, so how do you give room though for people to think, what we ought to do? Sponsor the water person on the field. How do we get to that?
Well, I think you have to start with a great insight about your customer, your consumer. You've got to have the freedom in what you stand for as a brand to be able to do that work. And then I think tactically, I mean, you have to actually just really make space for it and say, hey, we want to do something that's a bit breakthrough and out of the box. That doesn't mean a huge spend. It just means thinking creatively, thinking very insight driven. And, that kind of stuff happens. And at least in my world, as we're thinking about it, it has to happen alongside some of the factory systems, of work that has to happen, because all of that has its purpose and its place and is very effective. So you can't stop that. But when you can do these kinds of things in addition, that's where you start to see some real breakthrough.
I love it. I don't know if people heard what you said there, but I think it might have been to me, it may have been the most important thing. You have such a clear sense of brand that when somebody comes and says, hey, what about, everybody goes, oh my God, yes. And that's only from the clarity of brand. Only from the clarity of brand. Because the clever ideas are not important if they're off brand. That's why marketing's hard. I think that's what people don't understand about marketing. It's a much more nuanced, aligned thing than you think it is. It's much harder. Okay. How about what's most underappreciated in marketing?
Underappreciated. I think it's your current customers as brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
Because, we often think of, okay, it's like, it's got to be about advertising and I've got to, deliver a message of this kind of thing. But actually, your current customers, your current consumers, if they're telling their friends about how great the experience of your product or your brand is, that's stronger than any ad that you can make.
Totally. Unmeasurable, hard to assess, hard to execute, most important.
Yeah.
I like that. That's actually really good. Boy, spoken like a real person knows their customer. Okay, last one. You ready here? What is the one thing that somebody listening here can do to be a better CMO? Did they get the shot or they're in the job? What do you think?
I think spending a lot of time understanding your customer or consumer is so important. And, I think we can do that or get that in the sort of traditional ways. Oh, sure, give me an insight report, or here's our brand equity studies. But what I've found, what's been super instructive and fascinating, is going on social media, following people that my customers love. Hearing and seeing how Gen Z is talking about beauty. It's really cool. And when you kind of get out into the wild and really listen, really observe, I think you just learn so much. And it's just so important to always keep that customer consumer voice at the core of everything that you do.
Oh, I so missed that. I used to do focus groups and all that with Procter & Gamble all the time. I loved it. Zena, listen, you're incredibly generous to take this time. You're 6 months into a new role at Sephora, so you have a lot to do. I think there's a small thing coming up, like a holiday season, that matters to retailers.
Yeah.
So you're very generous to do this now. If you'd said, Greg, don't you even dare talk to me until January, I would have been okay. And I'm super excited to welcome you into the MMA family. I know you and I have been talking about it for a little while, so the board's super excited, so am I. So really, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. Listeners appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks again to Zena Arnold from Sephora for coming on Building Better CMOs. Check the description of this episode for links to connect with Zena. And if you want to know more about MMA's work to unlock the power of marketing, please visit MMAglobal.com or attend any one of MMA's 30-plus conferences in the 15 countries where we operate, or write me, Greg, at MMAglobal.com. Thank you so much for listening. Tap the link in the description to leave us a review. If you're new to the show, please follow or subscribe on Apple, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find links to all those places and more at buildingbettercmos.com. Our producer and podcast consultant is Eric Johnson from lightningpod.fm. Our project manager is Lily Mahoney. Artwork is by Jason Chase, and a special thanks to LaSarah Smith for making the engines run. This is Greg Stuart. I'll see you in 2 weeks.